we learned how you could set up the layout of the button and also how we could change the background color of the button as well as the background color of the layout. Now in this tutorial what we are going to do is that we are going to add one more widget to our layout, and that widget is going to be the edit text widget, which allows the user to edit some text onto our application. So in order to do that, the first thing which we need to do is that we need to import the edit text. So in order to do so, we go here and we type import android dot widget. As it is widget, it is present in the widget package. So we type android dot widget dot edit text, and it is going to import the edit text for us. Now let's go ahead and create the object for edit text in a similar fashion in which we have created the object of the button right over here. So in the same fashion, we go ahead and create the object for edit text. So we type edit text, and let's say we name the edit text as, let's say we want to accept the username. So we type edit text username equals new edit text, and in the parameters we are going to specify this. Now once this is done, the next thing which we do is we set IDs to the edit text as well as the button. Now what happens is that whenever you want to use some of these widgets for further application, we need certain IDs so that we could call them or reference them by using these IDs. So it is important that you set IDs to the button as well as the text. So we go ahead and create IDs for each of them. So let's go ahead and create the ID for the button first. So we type my button, and then in order to set some ID for it, we type dot set ID, and this set ID method is going to set the ID up for us. So for example, let's say we set this ID to, let's say, 1, and in case of the username we set the ID to 2. So we type the name, which is username, and then we type dot set ID, and let's name this ID as 2. So what happens is that whenever we want to reference to this button or when we want to reference to this username, we could simply specify this ID right here so that we could get back to them. Now once this is done, the next thing which we do is we want to make sure that the username has a proper layout. So in order to give the layout to the username, what we do is that we simply go ahead up here and we copy this line of codes which is present here, which is used in order to set the layout for buttons. So we simply copy it, and as we are going to use the same method for setting up the layout, we just paste it and then we replace this button details by username. So let's say the user details are the details for the username. So we type username details. Now once we are done with this, the next thing which we want to do is that we want to specify a particular position to this. So in order to do that, we type username details dot add rule in order to add a certain set of rule. Now we type relative layout, as this is a relative layout. Then as we want to place this above the button, so we type dot above and make sure that you have a capital. So we type dot above. Now once we are done with this, the next thing which we do is we specify the next parameter, and that parameter is going to be the button. So we type my button dot get ID, which is going to get the ID. Now once this is done, what we want to do is that we want to align this username in the center. So in order to do that, we type username details dot add rule, and inside the rule we want to specify the relative layout. So we type relative layout, and now as we want to place it in center, we type dot center horizontal, and that is going to align this in the center horizontally. Now once this is done, the next thing which we want to make sure that it has some specific set of margins. So what happens is that as we have placed this text right above the button, so basically there wouldn't be any gap in between these two. So we want to make sure that we add up some margin to it. Now in order to add margin to this, we type the text name, which is username details, and then we use the set margin method in order to set the margin. So we type dot set margins. So as you could see right here, the set margin methods, the parameter it is going to accept is going to be the left, top, right and bottom. So in the first parameter, you are going to specify the margin which is to be left to the left side. Then we have the margin which we want to leave on the top. Then we have the margin to the right, and finally we have the margin to the bottom. So as in this case, as we only want to specify the margin to the bottom, so what we do is that in the set margin methods, the first three parameters are going to be 0, and let's say the third parameter which we want to use is 50. So basically in the bottommost parameter we want to specify the margin of 50 pixels, so we add 50 to the end of it. Now once this is done, the next thing which we want to do is that we want to add the username onto the layout. So we type my layout, which is our layout name. Then we use the method add view in order to add this username onto the layout. So we type dot add view username, and the details of the username are username details. Now once this is done, we have successfully added this onto the layout. Now in order to check if our application performs correctly, we save the code and we run it on the emulator. So as you could see, our application is up and running, and we have the button right here, and we also have the text box over here, and we could enter any text onto this text box. So if you want to enter text, we simply click on it, and when we click on it, as you could see that the keyboard pops up and we could type any text onto this. So basically we have created the text box successfully, and what happens is that as you could see, the size of the text box is very small. So in the next tutorial, what we'll be doing is that we are going to learn how you could resize this text box by using DIP, which is called as the density independent pixels. So basically, as you could see that we have the text box, we have the button, and we also have the margin of 50 pixels right in between them, and that is because we have used the set margins method in order to set the margins between them. So in the next tutorial, we'll be learning how we could increase the size of this text box by using density independent pixels. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you. Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we'll be learning how you could add properties to your widgets. Now in the previous tutorial we have learned how you could add widgets like the simple button onto your Android activity screen, and we have also run the application in the emulator. So what I've done is that instead of closing the emulator, I've just minimized it so that it takes less time for the computer to load up and boot up the emulator once again. So you could also do the same. So instead of just exiting out of your emulator, you could just exit out of your app and then minimize the emulator. So when you are running the emulator for one more time after modifying your code, so it will take a relatively shorter span of time to load up the emulator. Now what we are going to do in this tutorial is that we are going to define some properties for the button which we have created, and also we are going to try and change the background color of our activity screen by using some Java code. So now in this case, as we want to change the color, the next thing which we want to do in the Java code is that we want to import a package which is called as color. So we go right ahead and we import color. So to import color, we type import android dot graphics dot color, and that is going to import the color package for us. Now the next thing which we want to do is that we want to set the background color of the layout. So in order to do that, we go right ahead here, and in order to change the layout's color, we type my layout, which is nothing but the name of our layout. Then we give a period or dot operator, and then we type set background color, which is a method which is used in order to set the color. Now in the parameter section of this, what we want to do is that we want to specify the color which we want to use. So let's say we want to change the background color to blue. So in this we type color dot and the desired color which we want. So in this case, if we want blue, we type blue in capitals, and it is going to change the color of the background for us. Now once we are done with this, let's say we want to change the color of the button too. So we do the same with button. So we type the name of button, which is my button, then we type dot set background color, and let's say we want to set it to, let's say, green. So we type color dot green, and it is going to set the color for us. Now also we want to mention some text onto the button. So in order to mention text, we type my button dot set text. So set text is basically the method which is used in order to set the text of a particular element. So in this case, as we want to set the text of the button, we specified the button name, which is my button. Then we have used the set text method, and inside the parameters we specify the text which we want to display. So in double quotes we type, let's say, click here. Now once this is done, when we switch to this content mail.xml file, you could see that no change appears right over here, but when we run the application we could notice the change, and that is because when we are going to set the layout from here, it is not going to usually show you changes here. Now the main advantage of using Java for creating your interface is that you could dynamically change your interface when you are typing code in Java. For example, if you want to change the code in XML, so it is good for the applications which are static, that is, the interface is not going to change that much. But if you want to design an application wherein the layout of your application depends upon the preference of a user, so in that case we are going to go with the Java code. So coming back to the tutorial, we have set the color of the button and we have also set the text of the button. Now once we are done setting the color and the text of the button, the next thing which we want to do is that we want to align these buttons properly. So in order to do that, we go ahead and type the layout's name, which is relative layout. So we type relative layout, then we type dot layout params, and this is going to be the layout parameter, and this we are going to specify the widget which we want to use, and then we are going to specify its layout. So we type dot layout params, and params stands for parameters. Now the next thing which we need to do is we want to mention the widget for which we are using this. So let's name it as button details, as we are going to set the layout for buttons. So we type button details, and then we type this equals, again we type relative layout, and then again we use the dot layout params, and inside the parameters we want to set the actual parameters which we are going to use. So basically what we are trying to achieve here is that we are going to place the button in the relative layout by using some parameters. Now in this case we want to use wrap content, and wrap content is basically used when we want the container to wrap along our elements. So basically when we are done with this, we type relative layout dot layout params dot wrap content, and this is going to wrap the content for us. And then again we are going to type relative layout dot layout params dot wrap content, and make sure that you end this with a semicolon, and also make sure that as we are creating a new object of the parameters, you make sure that you specify the new keyword here, and as you specify new here, you could see that all the errors are automatically gone. Now if you don't understand why we have written this line of code here, so basically we have written this just for the sake of adding a rule which is called as button details to our button right over here, so that this button is specified in a proper location. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to add these button details, and we are going to specify a proper layout for our button. So we go down here and then we type button details, then we give a dot operator, and then we use the add rule in order to add the layout to it. So in this case the first parameter which we want to specify is going to be the location. So in order to specify the location, we type the name of our layout. So in this case we are using relative layout, so we type relative layout dot, as we want to specify it in center, so we type center horizontal, and center horizontal is nothing but it is going to place the button horizontally in the center. So we type center horizontal, and also we want to make sure that we have placed this button in the center vertically as well. So we go down here and again we add the rule. So we type button details dot add rule, and this line of code is going to be the same. So we type relative layout dot center, but in this case we are going to type in center vertical, so that horizontally as well as vertically this button is aligned in the center. So now once this is done, the next thing which we do is that we go to the layout right here, and we have specified the add view. So we simply cut it from this position, we go ahead and come here and we paste the code here. And one more thing which we want to add to this button is going to be the button details which we have created right over here. So you make sure that you go ahead here and then you type in the button details. So we type button details right over here. So now let's go through the code once again in order to have a proper understanding of what we have done. So basically in the previous tutorial we have created objects of relative layout for specifying the layout, and we have also created a button object which we are going to use. Now the next thing which we did is as we wanted to set the background color of the layout, we have typed myLayout.set background color, and the set background color method is basically used in order to change the background color, and we did the same with the my button. And then finally, in order to add some text to my button, we have typed mybutton.setText, and we have specified the text here. Now this line of code right here is a bit confusing, and that is because it is basically a rule in order to set